The Phillies did something this weekend that they typically don't do, which is they won a series against the Marlins. It feels like forever since they actually took care of the pesky Marlins, Bob. So does that mean we must change our outlook now? Have the Phillies turned the corner enough for us to say, okay, I'm intrigued?
Yeah, sure. Intrigued sounds good. Listen, man, it's like you have to be one extreme or the other. Like, are the Phillies suddenly a championship contender? Absolutely not. But or is what they've done over the last 2 weeks been impressive? Yeah, sure it is. It's really good. This is a team that they don't beat usually. They take 3 or 4 from them. And I'll tell you what was impressive yesterday. They get the walk-off to cap the Saturday night postpone game. And then they get midway through the second game. And this is the game that they lose, even though it sets up for them. They have Zach Wheeler going. They're facing this nobody lefty, a young kid. They fall behind early, and you kind of say to yourself, see, here you go. They blew another opportunity. But they fight back, and they win the game, and it's a game that they should have won. And that's something they haven't done now for 3 years. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, I'll give you that, is the fact that they beat the Marlins 3 out of 4, a team that they struggle with, the way that they did it. And then you get, a guy like Hector Neris gets a save where those are nights where you've been crossing your fingers and kind of, wondering what's next. And so they did it in some unconventional ways, but still won 3 out of 4, which makes, as you wrote, things a little weird because all of a sudden now you're only 2 back in the standings. The Mets have been kind of falling apart here. Dave Dombrowski has kind of come out and said, we're not selling. We're in this thing. So what do the next 2 weeks look like?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It was really kind of interesting yesterday. After the first game, there's this half-hour, 40-minute delay in between the 2 games, and then they put up on Fanavision the Pittsburgh New York game. We see that ridiculous play early on, makes it 6-0 Pittsburgh. The fans are cheering, and you're kind of like, oh my God, they might be 1 game out here at the end of the day. But obviously New York comes back and wins the game, but they're 2 games out here. The Phillies have to be motivated to buy. Listen, you can make all of the arguments in the world as to why this team really shouldn't go for it. May not go all in, so to speak, but they're going to add. They've missed the playoffs 9 straight years. The ownership's embarrassed by it. This is a veteran-laden team, a team that's had disappointments the last number of years. They're going to add to this team. Dave Dombrowski said as much. So what can you expect? A lot of rumors linking the Phillies to guys like Craig Kimbrell, probably any available closer. And a lot of these rumors are just going to be agents trying to drum up interest on the market, rival execs trying to, create smoke screens. But there's going to be genuine interest by the Phillies in a number of relievers and potentially, if there's the right fit, maybe an outfield upgrade as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you think of the sudden rise of center fielders that continue to pop up on the Phillies' wish list?
Yeah, I think it's an acknowledgement that they got what they could out of Odubel Herrera. He'll be back up at some point. He's going to do some rehab work this week, and you'll probably see him again at some point. But I think it's an acknowledgement that Odubel Herrera is not a perfect player. And I think it's an acknowledgement that they don't want to overexpose Travis Jankowski. I mean, he's been a godsend for this team. One thing that's different about this Phillies team than some of the more recent years is that they're really getting big-time contributions from bench pieces, whether it be Brad Miller or Ronald Torreyes or Travis Jankowski. But you don't want to overexpose guys. Jankowski's coming up on roughly 50 at-bats and has a 975 OPS. He's done a great job defensively. He's gotten some key hits for them. But is that a guy that you want to run out there 6 days a week for the next 2.5 months? I don't know. So I think the Phillies will kick the tires on some potential upgrades. And that's why you're seeing names like Starling Marte pop up.
Bob Wankel Crossing Broad covers the Phils 2 back. They'll take on the Yankees starting tomorrow. Obviously, the bullpen is an issue. Now, Dombrowski kind of said, well, we've got some internal pieces that we think can help. He's lying, right?
Yeah, Chase Anderson coming back from AAA to.
Well, he mentioned hey, if we made a trade and got a guy, and John Clark did the podcast with him, so I'll give him the credit for that. But if we got a guy that had Ranger Suarez's numbers, the fans would be excited about getting that guy. So here's a guy that has these numbers that we haven't really seen a lot of, and we're excited about that. He mentioned that Neris, now that he's not closing, although he did close yesterday, that he's pitched better since he's not been the closer. Archie Bradley's pitched better. So he tried to paint a picture of, hey, these guys have been better. We've been better in that area, but you can't look at that over these next 2 weeks and say, we're better there. They have to fix that.
I think that you have to dilute, if you're Dave Dombrowski, some of the urgency. I think objectively speaking, he knows that this bullpen has not been good enough, and that if he stands pat and doesn't make any additions to it, that it's probably not going to perform well in the second half. Will it be better than it was in the first half? Maybe. Hector Neris has done a nice job. He completely implodes against the Padres on the 4th of July, but now 6 straight appearances where he hasn't allowed a run. He's only given up 2 hits, no walks. I mean, Hector Neris has done a really nice job once he was sort of demoted out of that closer role in those high leverage situations. Listen, Ranger Suarez, he gets tagged the other night in Saturday's game. I don't think that he's a closer. I think the Phillies have a clear need for somebody to consistently pitch the 9th inning and doesn't have to be perfect. When you look at a guy like Ranger Suarez, who I think is a really valuable piece and can bring a great deal of versatility to a bullpen. But the bottom line is the guy's throwing 91, 92 miles an hour. And if you're not on and you're not throwing with pinpoint accuracy, as he often does, you're going to get cooked in big spots from time to time. And I just don't think that you can consistently trot him out in the 8th, 9th inning and say, hey, lock it down for us if you want to be a playoff team.
You're right.
Good news, but you got to upgrade there.
If I told you they landed Marte or Buxton or a bullpen arm, what's the better scenario?
I would still say a bullpen arm. Listen, I know that there's a philosophy out there that you can kind of out-hit your pitching deficiencies. We've seen teams do that in the past. But I think that this lineup has a little bit more juice in it. You've seen this lineup, for the most part now this month, perform very well. They're hitting the ball. They're putting the ball in play more frequently. The production across the board is kind of starting to heat up. You're seeing guys like Real Muto, McCutchen, swing it together at the same time. I think that this lineup, now that it's back to full strength, it can get better than it was in the first half. I don't know that the bullpen can necessarily do that.
You're right about that. The fact that the lineup has not really been together. He did indicate that, hey, we haven't had the lineup together. They've finally been together. We've been playing better baseball. He did mention we've out-hit our defensive deficiencies, which is true. They're a terrible defensive team here. And I think you make a good point about guys like Jankowski and Torreyes who have helped this team out. You wonder how much more they can continue to get from those guys, or do you need to basically rely more on your starting players?
Yeah, listen, I mean, the Phillies are only going to go as far as Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, the frontline guys, your key core guys are going to take you. I mean, that's just the bottom line. But you run the risk of a guy like Ronald Torreyes, who has been fun to watch. A good glove at third base, makes the plays that he needs to make, has come up with some timely hits. But Mike, that the more that you play guys that are more accustomed or better suited for a bench role, the more likely you're going to kind of burn them out and overexpose them a little bit. So the Phillies just have to be careful here that they kind of continue to mix and match these guys in. Listen, they've had an advantageous schedule here in July. They've taken advantage of it. They have the best record in baseball this month. And, yeah, right. Hard to kind of believe it sort of jumps off the page at you, but 10-4, I mean, they're rolling right now. Yeah. And they have a favorable setup going up to the Bronx this week. I mean, the New York Yankees are a mess. They actually have a better record than the Phillies at 48 and 44.
They won 7 out of 10.
Yeah, they've played well here despite some of the COVID issues. But if you take a look at their lineup, go check out their lineup on a nationally televised game against the Boston Red Sox last night. And you'll see DJ LeMahieu, you'll see Stanton, you'll see Gleyber Torres, and then hitters 5 through 9, you'll go, I have no idea who those guys are. I follow baseball for a living, and I was hard-pressed to kind of say, hey, yeah, I know a lot about these guys. So, and then you got Domingo Germán, who has been terrible his last 5-7 appearances, ERA over 9. Aaron Nola on 2 weeks rest. So this is a big spot for the Phillies. They got to go up there and at least split this series with the Yankees.
2 with the Yankees, 4 with the Braves, 4 with Washington before they get to that deadline. So that is a good opportunity to kind of establish who you are and what you're going to be with 8 games in the division before the trade deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. The Phillies, I think, may look to make moves prior to July 30th. I don't think that they necessarily have to wait until the 11th hour to do it. But they have 10 games here to kind of solidify the fact that they're going to hang around in this division. And the way that they're kind of trending right now and the way that the rest of the division is trending, you would kind of expect that over the next 10 games, at the very least, they're going to be sitting 2-3 games out. You don't see the Mets, based on what we're looking at over the next week and a half, kind of all of a sudden jumping back out to a 5-6 game lead here. So I think the Phillies are in it. I think that they're in it to stay.
All right. Eagles season starts on Tuesday. The Phillies look like they've reached that threshold in it. Bob Wankel crossing broad here on a Sports Bash Monday. All right, Bob. Take care, man.
All right, Mike. See you.